Good evening and welcome back to Heart and Hand Live. It's been a few months since we recorded one of these shows on YouTube. I think we're basically fair weather YouTubers, hibernate for the winter, and we come back when it's light, or more importantly, when Rangers are looking like they might be good again, which is right now. Joining me tonight, we've got a stellar panel. First of all, we've got Cammy. How are you?
I'm good, my friend. Thank you for having me on. Feeling top of the world, Adam.
Absolutely. And David Marshall, how are you?
Very good, mate. Got no complaints. Good to see the goal difference up and running now. So, main quiz and all that. Happy days.
That is, we will come on to that. That is the main quiz. And David Edgar, hello.
Hi, guys. Great to be here. You know how much I love doing these. So, But I'm here. Never let it be said, etc. Happy to be here.
To be here. Yeah.
Happy to be
what a time to be here, to be fair.
What a time to be alive.
It's obviously going to be a Q&A because the title of the show says live Q&A, and that's what we're going to be doing. I'm sure we'll dig into it, but I think topics will definitely include, let me get this right, Belgian fills, table topping, quadruple chasing teddy bears. That'll be, I think, the main theme of the occasion. If you're watching this in a month and we're out of one of those trophies, I was only kidding on. If you're watching it in 2 months and we've won some of those trophies, then yes. We'll also talk about, I'm sure, some of the other things that have been happening. David, you're going to give us a rundown on the women's game. We'll do a recap on the St Johnstone game as well, and probably at the end we'll ask everyone what their favourite burner account on Twitter is. Before we dig into the questions, David, Edgar, I'll come to you first of all with a question from me. I think it's really important to be aware of history and learn from it where you can. I know you're a big history buff. But for me, I think it's probably more important to focus on today and what that means for tomorrow. So putting a Rangers spin on that, what's your assessment on where we are right now this season under the manager?
We have momentum, and it's, the big Mo, it's the under, but we've also got a wee Mo as well, who looks quite good at the moment. But you think about how you get to a certain position in any sport. And, Rangers are 2 points ahead of Celtic. Well, had the two sides been going nip and tuck all season, the feeling would be totally different. The fact is that Rangers had what appeared to be an insurmountable lead. I think anyone who thought the day that Michael Beale got fired, that's it now. The turnaround begins right now, was very ambitious because it didn't seem realistic. We needed to be almost perfect, and we have been, and we needed Celtic to come back a bit, and they certainly have. And right now, we are entitled to call ourselves the favourites in this. The bookies have us as favourites. The reason being is Rangers are winning games. They're not dropping points. Celtic are dropping points. And it cannot turn around really quickly. We understand that. It's turned around inside, 4 months? But you would rather be in our position than theirs, even to get to the stage. For us to be not just leading, which we would have been obviously last Thursday morning if we'd scored that fourth goal, and it would have been nice. But for us to be leading by points, going into a home game as well, which should be remembered, albeit against a very good side who are really banging form at the moment, Hearts. But I just think that, you can look for parallels. I can't recall any manager coming in at that stage of the season with a squad looking as broken and talentless, let's be honest. I mean, it looked, right, how the hell are you going to fuse anything useful out of this? Because it looked like a bunch of disparate parts, didn't it, that had been fused. Yeah. And the guy who brought them, who decided, I'm going to get these players together, didn't seem able to fashion them into anything that looked as though it was going to work. The turnaround from Philippe Clement to be here, I genuinely think that we might be looking at something that we have no precedent for, of a manager coming in and doing this. And, we've won 7 trebles. If he comes in and wins an 8th, then it has to go down for me anyway as the most remarkable. Maybe not the best team, maybe not the most exciting league, but the achievement from where Rangers were to now is staggering. I mean, it really is.
100%. Cammy, I think before the managerial change, I might have said in one of the group chats that I feel like another manager could get more out of these players. First of all, I talk a lot of shite, so that's one thing, and probably that wasn't. I probably didn't even mean that when I said it. But I don't think anybody would have expected that it would be quite the turnaround. Now, we're not the finished article, absolutely not. But
well,
like David
Adam,
said,
sorry, cut in. Here's the question: then. When you said that, did you think a manager could get this much out of them?
well, the interesting thing is, I think I was quite annoyed or quite what's the word? Quite miffed, I think, when we had maybe the Davis and Alex Ray thing, because I was of the opinion that we should have an experienced caretaker in for a bit. I did not think we'd get a manager of the level that we got. I think, first of all, mid-season, where we were, the money that we'd spent, everybody was saying there's not going to be any money for signings in January, etc. I didn't think we'd get a manager at that level. So at that point, I was cautious, I think. So no, I definitely don't think, from what we've seen, probably players there, and we know things are never as bad as they seem, and they're probably not as good as they always seem as well. So I think from that point of view, no, I didn't expect we'd get to this point. But Cammy, I just want to get your opinion on that in terms of sometimes I think we can catastrophize, and sometimes we can absolutely overegg situations and go from highs to lows. I think that's what football fans do anyway. But I guess my question to you is pretty similar there. Were things as bad as they seemed, and is this a huge turnaround, or is this just a proper experienced manager coming in, working with the players that he's got and getting the very best out of them?
So yeah, I think there's definitely something to that. I think we all kind of joked when Clemont was coming in, and we saw the whole he's watched every game of ours so far this season, and everyone was like, "Christ, poor bastard, he'll turn the plane around."
He's still accepting the job.
He's still coming the door.
Thank God he was on the plane though when he started watching them.
Yeah, and everyone remembers the image of him watching that, and I think Dessels was offside on that.
He was. Genuinely was.
I think this is why, because you're right, Adam, right? Everything, the easiest way to be able to describe it, I think we've all said it at some point, is with the Rangers fan base, everything's either sugar or shite. We love it, and then we hate it, and we love it, and we hate it. And the best way I can encapsulate that for me was walking out Ibrox last Wednesday, disappointed at a 3-1 win, until I had a word with myself and thought, catch yourself on a little bit. What these players have done and what the manager's been able to get out of them is a solid tune that's been able to lift performances, been able to get results that's massive for us when we've had the opportunity to take advantage when Celtic have slipped up. So I think you have to kind of go beyond just the performances in the park. I think you have to look a lot around the kind of the squad cohesion, being able to try and get these players to start expecting from one another. And I made mention, actually following the St Johnstone game, saying that, I remember seeing players having a proper go at each other when they weren't doing what they needed them to do. And we've all seen brilliant Rangers teams, successful Rangers teams, who will properly turn around and hold each other to account. I don't think that was there under the previous manager. I think we accepted a below or subpar performance as, well, we're just unlucky, or things didn't go our way, or the ball didn't bounce us. It was excuses, right? And what the manager has come in is established an absolute baseline of standards. And he said, I don't necessarily need you to do flair and fanciness. And I think actually you've probably seen that the way how he's treated Todd Cantwell, because there's been times, the manager said it himself, right? I think he did it when we went to St Mirren, and he said, this is games that we'll need industry in. We will need to be able to get the result and be able to try and do all that. So not only has he come in with quite a succinct understanding of Scottish football, which is very weird in a foreign manager, but also he's been able to come in and just make sure that the squad starts to come together. So he's given a number of players who I think that we had pretty much written off, he's given them even chances to be able to try and prove themselves. So I think he absolutely has put play on top of guys like, he gave Lammers a lot of time whilst he was still here. He's given Scott Wright a lot of time. We've seen that as well. Ross McCausland has definitely benefited out of the back of that. So as far as he's concerned, it's a fresh start for everyone. And it feels to me that the biggest thing he's done is he's taken a whole lot of baggage and weight away from the playing group. He's very much said, you're capable of better. I believe in it, and I need you to believe in it, and I need you to believe in each other. And that is what has been, I think, for me, the major pillar of the success that we've had so far.
Yeah, totally agree. Let's quickly run, very quickly run through some thoughts on the two games at the weekend. St Johnstone, I didn't think it was too much to write home about, to be honest. I thought certainly first half we were probably verging on pretty poor until Diamandi scored. I think we had 2 shots, 1 off target and the goal, which obviously was great. But context is just a funny thing, isn't it, David Edgar? 6 months ago, I'd have been moaning about us not creating enough chances in this type of game and saying this can't continue, blah, blah, blah. We've got 2 penalties to get over the line. But I guess given where we are just now and everything, momentum, that phrase, that word that's getting used so much just now, momentum. But also, I think given what else happened at the weekend with Celtic dropping points, that game was just really about going out and getting the win and getting the 3 points, wasn't it?
It's a title race. It's all about getting the win. It's about getting the win from now to the end of the season. It'd be great if we can do so with a bit of style and scoring a lot of goals, absolutely. But it's about getting those victories. Sunday looked a tricky fixture because of the pitch and because of scars we carry as a support from previous occasions where we have had these opportunities and have failed to take them. And what impressed me at the weekend was, as you say, the cold professionalism about it, because that's what you need to win titles. They didn't go out, and I've seen players in this Rangers squad go out on days like that and bottle it, you know. And by that, I don't mean that they go out and they try not to deliver or anything. I just mean they go out and they're inhibited, you know. They don't represent themselves as well as they normally would in a match. Because they play the occasion rather than the match. At the weekend, they went out and they played St Johnstone. The way they prepared for it, the manager spoke before. He said, look, we're not going to be able to play great football on that pitch. It's not possible. Yeah. He picked a team that he felt could get that job done. He makes a change at half-time where he puts Dujon Sterling on the right wing, which is maybe counterintuitive, but he knew what was needed on that day. And I just thought the team carried themselves in a different way. I never feared that we were going to drop points in that match. And yeah, it was all about getting the result. And like I say, there will be times where we're playing an opponent, particularly at home, where you just expect, like, roll them over. And that won't change just because we're going for the title. But in this circumstance, what I think you've got as a manager is hugely pragmatic. But I'll go back to it. There's 12 games left now. If Rangers pick up 12 1-0 victories, nobody will care, because it's about winning a title, and it's just get over the line every single game. But I don't feel that we are falling over the line in any game at the moment. We might not be brilliant, but we're effective. We're very effective. And that confidence, this is maybe a first for this Rangers team, because I say this Rangers team, but, you know, there have been a number of faces who've been about the place for a while.
Yeah.
And I think they've been in sides that had to be playing well to win, mostly.
Definitely.
And if they dropped a little bit, particularly away from home, then they didn't. They dropped points, a lot of draws in these matches. I think they're now in a place where they go, all I need to do is go out and do my job. And if the other 10 do their job, we're going to win, regardless if somebody's having a fantastic day. Because there's more of a team structure, because they play in a more tactically aware way, there's not this thing that we saw in the past, Adam, of, well, hopefully Tav will do something, or hopefully Todd will do something, or hopefully Alfredo or Ryan will do something. Now it's a case of we all know our job, we all contribute. And I think that gives you a much more solid basis for success.
Completely agree. Okay, we'll dig into the questions in a second, but David Marshall, that wasn't the only big game on Sunday. Never mind the weekend. You were co-hosting the pre-match at Ibrox at the Edmiston House fan zone as Rangers women's team drew 1-1 with Celtic in the league. How did it go? What was the occasion like? What was the performance like? And what does that mean for the rest of the season?
The occasion itself, I thought, was a good one for the team, you know, to play them there at Ibrox. My opinion, fully enhanced by the fact they weren't there. The game itself, at times felt like every single Rangers and Celtic women's game I've watched over the last 3-4 years. Rangers totally dominated the ball, had the vast majority of the possession, and Celtic scored the opening goal. The difference this year to, you know, previous years is that Rangers have responded now. We came back, got a goal, turn the draw, had a couple of chances, a big one towards the end to win it. To fair Celtic had a couple of chances. Well, they were playing mostly on the break and they're getting behind us 2 or 3 times in the second half, and Jenna Fife had to come up with some big saves. Overall, though, I'd say it's a better result for us than it is for them. It leaves us 4 points ahead of both them and Glasgow City now. And I think there's just a couple of games left before the split. And then we'll go split into 6 and 6, and we'll play all the teams in the top 6 twice again. So we've still got 2 games against Celtic and 2 games against Glasgow City left. With us being 4 points clear, I'd still say we're very much in the driving seat here. A lot can change with the 4 games against the Chasers to come, but I just feel that this team will have more than enough to get over the line. I think we are a better team than both Celtic and Glasgow City. I could see Celtic out of the 3 being the one to drop off. I think when it comes right down to it, City will be our main contenders, and I still just think we've got enough to get past them and win the title again.
Brilliant. Yeah, fingers crossed we get a bit of success on for both teams this year. That would be fantastic. I'm struggling to keep up with these questions, but Cammy, I'm going to bring this one up for yourself. Is there wisdom in defences winning titles? Yeah, absolutely. The one season we won the league since coming back, we were stellar in defence, and it's trending the same way this season. Is that just a coincidence? This is an interesting one, because I think if you asked most Rangers fans, do we have a good defence? I don't think they would say yes. That's just not something. I'm not sure that would be a thing that we would say. Yeah, we're great defensively. However, and there's another question as well. That's another game went past with no shots on target for the opposition. We've only conceded 4 goals in 13 away games this year. 2 in the game against Celtic, 1 in the game against Aberdeen, and 1 in the game against Kilmarnock on the opening day of the season. So, yes, there's wisdom in defences winning titles. It's been proven that when we play away from home, if we concede a goal, we don't win the game. If we have a clean sheet, we do win the game. So I think we should just keep doing that. Thoughts?
Yeah, that seems really easy. I think. Listen, I think it's the back 5, right? We cannot underestimate. I mean, he's going to win Player of the Season, right? Jack Butland's been critical for us being able to try and come in. And by the way, in case we move off on a separate tangent, I'll get this in now. Absolute kudos to Rangers for not even entertaining any kind of bids for him during the January window. It was a non-starter, which is brilliant, because that was, to me, a clear intent of how serious we were about challenging for this title. I think I don't think it's lack of firepower necessarily from opposition teams. I think that we've all spoken about it in various post-match shows, analysis the following day, whatever. That there's key moments. I think about Hibs at Easter Road, Adam. In the most recent game that we played them, Jack Butland makes a fantastic save, and there's definitely a what-if tangent if that goal happens to go in. And then all of a sudden we could look a little bit frightened. And to David's point earlier on, because of this degree of confidence that this team is playing with at the moment, I fully believe it starts from the back. Alan McGregor's one of, if not the greatest ever Rangers goalkeeper that's ever been, but he did not have a good season last season. And I think that's fair to say, right? I think that signalled the end of his time, but will forever be indebted to him in terms of what he's done in the service to the club. And the biggest compliment I can pay Jack Butland is that we do not miss the in-form Alan McGregor. There has absolutely been some rotation in the defence due to necessity. I think Liam Balogun's come back, and I think he's proven key at times, especially going forward with the ball. I know, obviously, in terms of our style of play, I think Yilmaz was heading, if I'm being honest, and I actually think if Beale had stayed here and we were still in a second place, but still playing okay, and he had kept his job, I still think Yilmaz would have left. But I think the manager has said to me he can definitely use him, and that has, again, proven to be true. I go back to that game at Easter Road. But for me, it is key in terms of being able to try and be so completely solid at the back that it's probably why Rangers fans feel really frustrated at the fact it feels like we lose the same type of goal a lot. Again, we think about Aberdeen, but I actually came out in defence of Connor Goldson, because I actually think the Aberdeen goal that we conceded at home was down to great striking by Majowski. I don't think it was necessarily down to poor defending. So even when we do concede goals, either home or away, I think, as much as I hate to say it, they are good goals that we teams have to come up against this. You mentioned, obviously, the goals at Parkhead. I mean, the Furuhashi second goal's a cracker. What we're not seeing, however, is failure to pick up runs, losing men at back posts on such a consistent basis. It ended up putting our results in doubt. And again, it's maybe really fundamental, but I am absolutely of the belief that when you've got a solid back line, it just gives you that emphasis to be able to try and go forward, because you know you're going to have a hell of a job being able to try and beat that defence. So I actually think it does have a bit of a psychological factor on our opposition.
Yeah, David, it's not all about Butland, I guess, but it's one of those things, isn't it? That defending is about things that happen rather than things that don't happen. And the best defenders make things not happen, I guess, in terms of not making mistakes, goals not getting conceded. Sometimes you don't always see it, but there was, even at the weekend, I know we just take it for granted now. The weekend, there was a period in the first half where St Johnstone had, not sure if it was a series of corners, but they had a couple of free kicks and a corner or two, and the ball was coming into the box. And there was a couple of times I shouted Butland, like in terms of looking for him to come out and get it. And he just comes out, gets the ball, and you go again, and you don't even think about it anymore. But it's easy to forget, I guess, what we had a couple of years ago, that fraughtness we had, or even further back. Every time a cross ball came in under Mark Warburton, that we were concerned we were basically going to score a goal every single time. It's not just about Butland, but I think he's a huge part of it, isn't he?
Oh yeah, I mean, 100%. It's the fact that Alan McGregor wouldn't come off his line, and not just at corners, by the way, like balls over the top, meant that the defence had to do a lot more defending, and it's just common sense. If you need to do a lot more defending, the chances of mistakes go up, and that is what we saw. There were some of the goals we lost where it should have been dealt with, 2 or 3 minutes or 2 or 3 moments before, where a goalkeeper just cut in. That's what Butland does, and that means that he's got less to do, and it means that the defence is much more solid on the back of that. Look, you are going to concede goals. I know we don't like that, but you're never going to achieve a season where you don't concede any goals. And at every goal, there will be a breakdown, there will be an error, there will be a mistake, there will be a point where somebody could have done something and didn't. That's the nature of football. But as the manager has been at pains to point out, we don't lose a lot of them, and that is important. So I think with that in mind, that Butland has that lovely knack that good footballers, good professionals have of making the people around them play better. And that comes from trust. That comes from a defender knowing if, and I hope I don't, but if I make an error here, he's there. So there's a fair chance that, that it won't lead to a goal. I mean, Dave, you played in goal. Defenders who are panicky because they're panicky about you, that's a hard thing to do, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, I never had any good defenders playing in front of me, unfortunately, and they'll tell you they didn't have any good goalkeepers behind them. But yeah, it is when you've got, it counts for those two guys in front of you, the centre halves. If you've got two strong pillars there, then it makes your job much easier. If you've got a day where you're just walking about your 6-yard box, don't have to do much, come out and grab the occasional cross. As a goalkeeper, you'll take that all day and you get the praise for it because you're doing all the easy stuff and you're making those in front. You feel better. So it's quite a symbiotic relationship that way. If your centre halves are playing good, limits what the goalkeeper needs to do, then it all just works nicely. I was talking about this with Stevie when we were watching the game on Sunday, Stevie Clifford, and to your point, Adam, I think it was a stat about the lack of goals that we've conceded come up. And we're talking about, I don't know if it just feels like every goal, or at least a lot of the goals we lose, seem to be either similar goals or a bit of a nonsense. But then when you actually reflect on it, like Cammy talks about that, the Miovs's goal he scored at Ibrox. Now, I was at the time, slating Goldson, but then you see it again. I actually think Goldson was fouled. So it's hard to blame him that way. But it might be just that, pursuit of perfection. It's really, really hard to criticise defence when you look at the amount of goals we've not conceded. It's quite incredible at this point in the season and conceding so little that we've done. So they might not be getting as much praise as deserved, but I think definitely they've done a good job so far this year.
I think that for some of the players, and maybe it's to do with how long they've been here, that people tend to focus on the mistakes without then balancing it by giving praise when they do good things.
Yeah.
And maybe it's a case of familiarity has bred a wee bit of contempt in the eyes of the support. I don't know. But look, they have their weaknesses. Of course they do. We know that. We do not have the AC Milan 1994 back four. Nobody does. But they're doing well. at the moment. Could they do better? Of course they could, absolutely. And the manager is wanting that out of them, and he's working towards it. But I think it's just I keep coming back to this. Is that a defence that could win a league title? And the answer is yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's all that really matters, isn't it?
Yeah.
I even think the defence that won the 55 season doesn't get any praise now because of, I guess, how it went the next couple of years after that. And no one says, oh, those players were great in that season. It's all about what have you done for me lately. So if we apply that logic to right now, then what have they done for us lately is pretty impressive. I think we're at something like 6 goals conceded in the 17 league games or something under Clemont. Feel like I've just pulled it out of my backside, but in general.
Yeah, I mean, it's a remarkable record. And I think because, generally speaking, those goals you've looked at and you say, well, someone might have done better at this point or that point or that point. It does happen. It's secondly, as well as being realistic about conceding goals, it's the fact that we are going to have the confidence to respond. And in the past, that wasn't the case. If Rangers conceded a goal, especially a bad goal, you could see it drain the confidence at the rest of them, the whole team.
Definitely.
And we would struggle. And it's not coincidence we lost patches of goals, goals in bunches, because there would be this 10, 15 minutes afterwards where their heads went. And I don't think that happens now. And like I say, if you start from the position of saying, look, we will concede some goals, but we'll do the very most we can to make sure we don't, then it gives you the confidence to be able to say, and as I mentioned earlier, defenders know they've got Butland there behind them. All of this is important. But I also think that something that's underrated on this side is that the boys in front of them aren't afraid to do their job. And if you look at somebody like Ross McCausland, now when Ross McCausland came in, he was to defending what I am to long hair, right? I mean, he just had no idea whatsoever where he was supposed to be when he didn't have the ball. And the improve, he's not there yet, but he's getting there. And see, as a supporter, that is all you ask for. And it kind of, a point someone mentioned to me, he said, see, even if we don't win the league this year, personally, I think we will. But if we don't win the league this year, he said, I won't go nuts because I know that I think we'll win it next year because we're going in the right direction. That's the difference. You can see improvements. You can see players adding things to their game, getting better at things they were bad at. That's all you can ever ask from a manager. And it's been so long since we've seen it where you went, you know what, they're getting better. Every month I can see a wee bit more. That's all you can ask for. Well, that and a treble.
The McCausland block against St Johnson at the back post, as far as I'm concerned, doesn't happen 2 months ago.
No,
I mean,
he doesn't. I genuinely don't think it does.
Yeah, it doesn't occur to him to be there a couple of months. And, we know he got that torrid night in Betis. And he's referenced this a few times in interviews since, where he said, I was miles off it. But he sat down, the manager said to him, you need to do this, you need to do that, listen to Tav, listen to the midfielders, and you can see him. Doesn't mean, as I say, that he's flawless at it. Now, how can he be? He's only really been at it for 2 months. But this is also the benefit, by the way, of playing young players. When they get chances to learn, it's a lot easier for them to learn.
Completely agree. Okay, we're getting a lot of comments coming in. Let's see if we can pick through some of these. This one is the equivalent of a wee guy holding their sign up to say, "Can I get your t-shirt?" I'm 100% going to put this up on the board at any time. Tav's got 120 goals, 247 goal contributions since 2015, I think it is. I'm going to make it look better than it is. We've scored 1,000 goals. Tav has contributed massively. There's a couple of comments coming in around, I guess, the simplicity, Cammy, and the tactical part of it. But I guess that sort of simplicity. Now, I was quite critical, I guess, when Van Bronckhorst was here around the different tactical approach for almost every single game. It was brilliant in Europe. Great, no qualms at all. But there was a game against Dundee United where I think he played. Was it a back three because Dundee United played 2 up top, and it was one of the worst games ever. I think we won 1-0. I was doing press at it, and it was one of those things you're focusing on the opposition a little bit too much here. And then with Beale, I think we've seen in some of the big games against Celtic, he did the same, as very negative in some of those games, and just really didn't seem to have a clear idea of where we were going, making things a little bit or a lot too complicated, putting players in positions that they weren't really great at. You think Cifuentes out wide in Europe and Cantwell covering for Tavernier in central midfield at times, just overcomplicating things. I don't see that with Clemont at all. It's a 4-2-3-1. That's it. It's not changing from a 4-2-3-1. We're going to have two central midfielders. One will sit and be the sort of the legs, if you like, and the other one next to him, regardless of who it is going to be the guy who gets forward, contributes, scores goals if he can. We've got a striker up top, we've got a proper number 10, and we've got two wingers on the side. He's just keeping it really, really simple, I think, and I think that seems to be a theme overall. The full thing is just simple messaging, one day at a time, never mind one game at a time, and it's certainly paying off.
Yeah, I mean, I think, as we've kind of said already, playing it simple, there's nothing wrong with playing it simple. I think you can be pragmatic when the occasion calls for it. I think that it'll be interesting to see, how and where he adjust that approach when we go back into Europe, for example. But I think with Beale and Van Bronckhorst, because I do remember, the five at the back at Easter Road and stuff when we were holding out. Whereas I think, as we've all kind of said now, the difference now is that we are pressing forward. We've got an energy about the team that, for me, comes from the fact that you've got players who feel far more confident. They feel far more secure in terms of what they're doing. And I don't mean secure in terms of saying, if I've got a bad game, shit, I'm going to get dropped. I just mean in terms of I understand what I have to do and where I have to be. And if I have to move, if I have to start to defend, to David's point earlier on, when we start to go back the way because we need to kind of close in a little bit, that's fine. That's not a problem. But it's not going to be a constant onslaught. I just think that a Beale Van Bronckhorst team feels quite timid. And I think that what we've also seen with Clemont is that he's happy for players to be able to try and take risks, but have the safety net that it's not going to come off all the time. That's fine. That's cool. Make that mistake if you want. But how many times have we all spoken about we wanted players to be braver? And what I think you see now, especially when you see players taking shots from central, from outside, even outside the 18-yard box, thinking of guys like Tom Lawrence and stuff, Lindstrom's starting to have a pop at them. Guys coming inside, you've seen that with Matondo, you've seen that with Cosland, and we're getting joy out the back of it. So does it mean that tactic or that style of play is going to work every single time you attempt it? No, it doesn't. But again, you go back to the amount of opportunities we had against St Johnstone. That was just a mixture of things that didn't come off for us that particular night, but it wasn't for a lack of belief from the players. So that's all he's had. And I hate saying this because it makes it sound like as if it's so blasé that any guy could have walked in and done it. And let's face it, we've seen that, very few can. But what Clemont has done is he's came down and he's broken down that style, that, probably that fear that some of the players had up to that point. And he's been able, in some cases, with certain individuals, to probably break a lot of that down and rebuild them. And I think that's been critical. There was a question earlier on, which I think is really, really important as well, Adam. Sorry to jump ahead a little bit there, where I also think his substitution and player management has absolutely been spot on. I think he's done brilliantly. Todd Cantwell, I think, has been the biggest benefactor of that, because Cantwell could have spat his dummy out, and I think there was elements at times where I think he was dangerously close to it. Yeah. Right now, if we win the league, Todd Cantwell's second half of the season, how he's been able to have that resurgence is going to be a key part of why we would get that trophy.
Totally agree. Marshall, there's been a lot of rotation, I think, certainly since we came back. Now the manager has more than 10 or 11 options. He's used the squad really well, I think. Barisic and Ridvan, Suter, Balogun, the partner next to Lundstrom. We've even seen McCausland. It felt like he was really determined not to put McCausland on Sunday. He swapped it about and he brought Stelling on for Wright when Wright wasn't having the best games. Mm-hmm. We've seen Cantwell and Diomande swapping about a little bit, Matondo and Cortez and Dessers and Silva. So he has used it quite well. I think most have done well when they came on, but I'm interested in that sort of number 9 position. What's your thoughts on that? The differences between the two? I'm not sure we're going to get to a point where one is the number 1 starter there, but what's your thoughts on those? Who do you prefer?
I prefer Silva because I think we just play better when he's in the line. I think he links up better with those behind him, and I think his movement's just better than Dessers. Dessers is a complete enigma of a player. You know, it either looks like the best player you've ever seen, or a guy who's never seen a football before, and there seems to be absolutely no in between. It is, you know, if I was to have any worries about the team, I think it's still a worry and it's a problem area, and it'll be something that we should be looking to address to a more permanent means in the summer. Right now, you know, we are getting players chipping in from other positions, scoring goals, which, if we're going to win the league, we're going to need, because, and again, it's this could sound harsh as well, because Dessers has scored a good amount of goals for us as well, but I just never feel comfortable or confident with the guy playing. I mean, those 2 chances he got on Sunday, did any of us think he was going to score them? Like, as soon as he went through, I was like, no chance. And, you know, this is something that you rightly hounded me on for during the week, when I was getting a bit peeved of the amount of chances that we made and the amount we squandered. I think it's okay if you're creating 43 shots and 43 chances in a match, Dessers going to score or 2, but if you're only creating 6, 7, 8 or 9 in a match, we can't give him 4 to score 1. You know, we need him to be more clinical than that. I still don't know how clinical Silva is, but I just think he seems to me to be the more rounded package of the 2.
Yeah, well, but that's the thing, right? You know, it's not bad luck that Dessers gets all the chances and Silva seems to get less. It's because Dessers is brilliant at getting himself into positions to score goals. It's not, you know, I think sometimes we just think it's a case of, if only that had fallen to Silva. It didn't fall to Silva because he wouldn't have made that run, the run that Dessers makes. It wouldn't have fallen to him because he wouldn't have been there. He wouldn't have positioned himself there. So, you know, Dessers does miss a lot of chances, yes, but he is there to miss them. And I know that is cold comfort if it's cost you, you know, points. And thankfully, so far, it hasn't very often anyway. But I do subscribe to the theory of if he keeps getting there, he'll keep getting numbers. I just think that, you know, that your law of averages even. But no, I take the point. But it's not random that, you know, Silva hasn't had that amount of chances and Dessers had. There is a reason for that, and it's because Dessers is very good at finding himself in those, or putting himself in those positions.
There's times when I think you've seen that with Silva, where he just wants to be involved in the build-up play. It's like as if he wants the assist or the assist to the assist. And I think for me, the progression that I've seen with Fabio Silva is that, you know, we think back to Dumbarton and you think about some of those games that he was kind of involved in right at the start. You could see that he was trying things, but some of the players around him couldn't read it, or he couldn't read their runs, and that was going to come in time. And I think you're actually starting to see some of that unlock. Davies hit the nail on the head. However, sometimes it's going to be the case. It's not laziness, it's just his style of play. It's just what he enjoys. He's not going to play a 1-2 by a guy where he's going to give the ball away to someone and then make that dart and Pearson run into the box to be able to do it, because it's not like his strikers' mentality to be able to try and do that. Strikers are just built differently. But as long as we can continue to give Dessers chances, I do actually believe he'll stick more than a few away. And I think it would be interesting, because I think a lot of the fan base is probably eating quite a bit of humble pie on it. And actually, I'm quite proud of all of us for being able to do that, because let's face it, go back 3 or 4 months, we had written that guy off. He wasn't going to be here post-January. But his goals have made a massive contribution to where we are now, and I don't think we could ever forget that.
No, I don't think we do. And look, I think that again, because everything has to be so binary in Scottish football, they either have to think he's great or he's rubbish, right? And I don't subscribe to that viewpoint at all. I think with Dessers that it's a case of saying, look, he does certain things really well and certain things not so well. And someone said to us, because we gave him a bit of praise on the flagship, they said, well, you're going really easy on him. I never quite understand, why we should be criticising our own players for going top of the league. But anyway, and I said, well, listen, it's all irrelevant about, he was saying, I think next season we need, I'm like, next season's it's irrelevant right now. Dessers is there. We are going to need him between now and the end of the season. And let's focus on what he can do as opposed to what he can't do. What's more likely is that, the amount of chances he gets, he starts taking more, or that he suddenly stops making the runs to get into those positions. I tend to think it's more likely that he'll start to get a better return on them. But I think that the manager uses him and Silva very well. where he looks at a game and says, this is a game where I want Fabio tiring them. But that's another reason it's not luck that he got 3 chances in those last 20 minutes. It's because that Silva had ran that defence backwards and forwards right across that pitch and taking the legs at them. And then you bring on a different sort of challenge for them. And he's done it with Dessers and then bringing Silva on as well. So the manager he's very good at husbanding his resources, at using what he has at his disposal in the best possible way. I know that in sections of the support that there's always got, if we don't win the league, it'll always be, we should have bought a striker. And there's a bit of truth in that. But that's for Mixie, that's for analysis in the summer. Right now, these are the strikers we have. These are the guys that will or won't fight us to the title.
But I think, but sorry, just to finish that off, Adam, on that point, Davey, when we're talking about, we should have bought a striker in January, and I think there was definitely a lot of kind of noise around that, and I understand why, right? I'm not saying anyone was wrong thinking that, but if you look at Dessers as an individual, in terms of where you're looking at some real concise coaching that's come in there as well, his timing his runs far better. He doesn't get caught offside anywhere near as much as he does. His touch has improved. I actually think his awareness, probably within 20 to 25 yards outside of the ball, is far better. That's coaching. That's been able to develop the player. And again, I think the manager has to take tremendous credit for that as well.
I think it's everything. It's 100% coaching. It's also, I guess, being a lot fitter than he was. Clearly, I know he came just recovered from an injury, but he's got himself fitter than he was even at the start of the autumn. And I think, like you said, just tactically, we're getting used to teammates. We see the relationship he's got now with Tavernier, but it can just be a look or a nod of the head, and the ball will come in. I think all of that is just a player getting used to where we are. Yes, I don't think he's ever going to be completely lethal, but not many are. I mean, the whole Shankland hype train is his numbers aren't that much different to Dessers in terms of number of chances he gets, shots that it takes him to get a goal, etc. So I don't know. It's so easy to say, like David said, they're parachute someone else in, and it's not necessarily going to be the same thing. In an ideal world, I would love to have Dessers getting into the position that just before he pulls the trigger, we wheel Roof out and let him kick the ball, because then we would score pretty much every single time. That would be great, but we don't live in that world. That's not how things work. So I think I would prefer to talk up the good things that Dessers does, and just see where we go with it. But I would certainly agree that if you were asking me, I'd like someone like Silva in there. However, I'm just not sure that he's at this stage. I'm just not sure he's going to score all those goals that we think he needs to. Whereas I think with Dessers, he'll probably still score more goals than Silva between now and the end of the season, even if he's got a bit less minutes. So it's definitely an interesting one.
Is there a way for us to merge them, like some kind of mad science experiment that we could do?
Great. We should try that with
some special coffee brew or something we've got sitting in the back.
No, just get the 2 pots on the fly, and then just merge them.
That's it. Nailed it.
Exactly.
That's it.
Together.
Coffee in the cryo chamber. We've got a couple more questions here. Marshall, lots about Nico Raskin. Just back from injury, just before the winter break. I think he played a couple of minutes against Kilmarnock. Had a few games since he came back, but hasn't played much in the last few. I don't think it's unrealistic to say he's probably third choice now for the partner of Lundstrom. I think you've got Diomande, who had a very good game at the weekend. You've also got Tom Lawrence, who's done really well.
I would say he's fourth
as well.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah. Like this weekend, I think there's a legitimate conversation about will it be Diomande or Lawrence, for positive reasons, by the way, because they've both done very well in the last 2 games. Nobody's saying that'll be Raskin. So for me, he's fourth out of 4.
Yeah. So Marshall, I guess this is one of these things as well that I think we sometimes do as Rangers fans. If a player's having a bad time, or they're not playing as well as they have done, they're maybe not even doing that great overall, it doesn't mean they're absolutely terrible. There can be lots of other circumstances. As much as a manager can get more out of other players, he's probably not going to get everything out of everyone right away. So where do you stand on Raskin? There's lots of chat in the comments about does he have a future and all that sort of stuff, which I think is just maybe a little bit too premature. But in terms of you and what you've seen of Raskin over the last year or so, does he deserve to be playing ahead of either of those two right now?
I really wish you went to somebody else with this question, because this is the kind of question where I'll say how I'm feeling in the moment, and in 6 months to a year's time, I could look very silly. But right now, with Nico Raskin, I'm getting to the point, if I'm not already there, where I don't really get him. I don't get what he does, what he brings to the team. I mean, a large part of that is that I'm discounting everything that happened to the second part of last season, because it didn't really matter, did it? Let's be honest. There was no pressure on any games we played, really, and it was all about building to this year. And this year, he's been injured a lot, and he's really been a non-factor. Right now, he's not getting into that midfield at the moment, and I don't really see how that changing outside of injury or those ahead of him having a massive drop-off in form. I don't think we'll see very much of him for the rest of the season in terms of starting games. Going forward, though, I really don't think you could call it, because there is clearly something there with the guy's a very, very talented footballer. But if you were to sit me down, put a gun and say, well, what does he actually bring to the team? I don't think I could give you an answer right now.
I know what he brings to the team. He just doesn't bring it often enough, and that's been the problem. Now you could say that that's been due to injury. You also need to remember that he's played most of his games this season under the previous regime, all of which we would agree didn't have a fucking clue what they were doing, particularly towards the end. So I think that, to me, I'd look on this as a positive, because you've got a player. You've got a player there who has talent, who, as I say, is fourth, maybe even fifth, by the way, if you count Sterling, and Ryan Jack's still there.
And Jack,
So you've got a player there who I think has talent, and it's a case, if you're the manager, is saying, you need to work, you need to show me something. It's up to you, because right now I'm quite happy going with what I've got. To me, that's quite exciting if I'm a manager, because I'm expecting him to bust his arse to try and get into the side. That's what I'm demanding from him. That's what I'm expecting. And if he does, and he's challenged, brilliant. We can't lose on that. So for me, it's a positive, outcome, because it's in the player's hands. There are guys ahead of him. He's not close to being, undroppable. It's not. He doesn't have to play. The manager has various options. So I think that for Raskin, he's going to have to just work hard, be patient, and as Dave said, when the opportunity does come, and it will come, when it does come, you have to grab it. And I think, for example, we talk about how it can be, like Scott Wright's a good example. Last two starts hauled off after 45 minutes. St Mirren away, St Johnstone away, shite pitches both days. Crap conditions, and someone made a very reasonable point to me. They said, well, it's no easy when you've not played a lot and you just get put straight into a team to impress. And I'm like, it's no easy, but it's all you get. So you have to do it. And Raskin will be the same. He has to do it. Or come the summer, it might be a case of Phil saying, well, hang on here, I don't need you. And, I can sell you and I can use the money to strengthen in places I think I need it.
So that's a key point,
For me, it's a good situation. A bad situation would be we've got guys in there who are not performing and Raskin not getting a game. That is a bad situation. But where we are right now, the ball is very much in Nico's court. Keep working, keep patient. Lundstrom went through this. Lundstrom went through this where even after he had that great run, in the year we got to Europa League final, he then had this quite long period of poor form, and I think a lot of the fans had given up on him, and he wasn't in the team, and he worked hard, got his chance under Phil, and he's been immense since Clemont came in.
Yeah, I think we're just conditioned, I guess, over the last 10 years or so, Cammy, to not having a good squad or a big squad that you can really rely on. We see it even now when the lineups come out and maybe Ben Davies isn't in the 18 or another player isn't in the 18, and Twitter's like, where is he? What's going on here? This is a disaster. When really it could just be other players are playing well or other players are fancied at the minute ahead of them, and it's just one game. It could be something like that. But I think we're just...
He could be booked at New Edmonton House.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We're just so conditioned to not really understanding that, and I completely agree with David. I think it's a positive. For me, I think Raskin is at the same stage that I thought Ridvan was for most of the first 18 months that he was here. I can see that you could be a good player. I can see elements of your game that I think that's great. I would like that to be a Rangers player. You're very high related. You're coming from one of the best countries in the world in terms of developing younger players just now. So you've got all that background, you've got all that pedigree, but if you can't do it on a consistent basis, and that is not staying fit or not coming in and being a difference maker every other week for Rangers, if you're not able to do that, then you're not going to get in the team. But I agree with David, it's a positive, and he's another one that, worst case scenario, doesn't play much over the next 4 months or so. We don't anywhere near lose money on him if we decide to sell him in the summer, because we only got him for £1 million, and I think if you're being fair about it, over the last year or so, he's done okay for £1 million. It's the context and the expectation of what he could be, the fact that he was going to be £5 or £6 million if he was in contract. He's young, he's talented, all that sort of stuff. So the expectation he hasn't lived up to. But yeah, I see it as a positive, and it's up to him, as David said. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, listen, there's a couple of things in it for me. I think the conditioning that you speak about is bang on. I think all you boys have kind of said that, and we're all on the same page with it. We don't now, for me, have multiple single points of failure. We don't have a Ryan Kent who has to play on the left-hand side because there's nobody there who'll take him out of that position. We don't have an Alfredo Morelos who, if he's injured, then we're completely snookered. Now, and listen, I'm a firm believer that intra-squad competition for places is essential, but we just haven't had it through various differing reasons. So it's weird for us to be able to, as David Edgar had kind of said there, have competition for players and say, actually, I'm picking him over you, not because you're poor, but just he is playing better. He deserves it more than you do at the moment, but it's on you to make me rethink that decision. And the other benefit to that, obviously, is whoever does get the shot in the starting position then has to maintain those standards, because any drop, you're losing the place. And the second thing I think for me is we get into this kind of cauldron, I think, at times. And again, you know, coming back and the build up to 55, winning trophies is going to stop this hysteria that we've all been guilty of, that players have to come in and hit the ground running immediately. They have to come in, they have to play well, they have to be brilliant, they have to be superstars. Because we've known that budget has been so thin, because we've had, you know, critical areas of the team that we've had to improve upon. That will start to quiet down as we become more successful, as we win the League Cup, as we compete for the league, as we have a manager who quite clearly knows what he wants to be able to try and do. And we've seen some examples of that more recently within the January window, where, you know, we were adamant. People were disgusted that we never signed Lawrence Shankland. But right now, I'd love to go back to those people and say, do you think the Diomande investment has now proven more successful because the manager knew what he was doing? So therefore, you have to trust him and you have to trust the process. None of us see what happens on the training park. None of us are party to the conversations he has with individuals. But the kind of key point for me, more than everything there, is that this manager will give chances to players. You will get your shot. And that's not because you deserve it. It's because you're working hard, even in the training park, behind the scenes, etc., etc. It's not just what happens at, you know, 3 o'clock on a Saturday, but you're earning it, and then therefore you will get your chance. He's very transparent like that. So again, I think, as the boys have said, if Nico buckles down, if he gets a starting position, if he plays his part, which I actually personally think he will, because I also think we'll see Scott Wright again for the end of the season. But we're in this for the long haul, right? We are potentially, you know, in the chase for a quadruple. I'm sorry, but you boys all know this. That's not the same 13, 14 players that you have to rely on. Everyone's going to get in there. So I actually think Nico, we will see him again. We might see him more from a, you know, managing our resources perspective. David mentioned that earlier on, actually. That's fine. Nothing wrong with that. But again, like you say, it's his responsibility that when he gets given that opportunity to try his heart out. That is actually one of the things I do like about Raskin. I do think he does really put a bit of effort in. He just needs to be able to try and continue to try and get in front of the guy who's keeping him out of the team at the moment.
I think a lot of us have got in our head that a squad should be the 11 guys that you pick, and then the guys who are available if they're not available. And that's clearly not the way the manager sees it. Because you don't get picked, because whoever doesn't get picked on Saturday doesn't mean he doesn't rate them. They might come in from the game after that. He rotates players, he keeps them fresh. And maybe the fact that we have continually asked pretty much the same guys to play every week, as Cammy mentioned, some of them undroppable and knew it, which I think affects motivation. And and engenders complacency. But also, then we go, God, we play these. Why are we getting all these injuries?
Yeah.
Maybe
100%. 100%.
Maybe we should. So I just think that, but we're going into a big game at the weekend where we're looking at the midfield position and we're saying, who will we pick? Well, we can't drop Lundstrom. He's been excellent. Diamandi or Lawrence, they've both been great. When was the last time Rangers were in a run?
No.
Rather than going, he was shite last week, so drop him. Oh, but he was shite the last time he played.
Who else have we got?
Who else have we got? And it's not like that.
Yeah, we've not got an injury list that reads like, Hamlet, a transcript to Hamlet. But yeah, you're absolutely right.
Yeah, we've deliberately not really spoke about the game on Saturday, so as not to steal Cammie's thunder for extra. But it is obviously a massive game. As you all know, it is a huge 3 points and a must win, like every other game that has ever existed for.
Is it? No, Adam. Is it? I want to hear it from you.
I rely on your word for this.
How big a game is it? And do we need 3 points from it?
Massive. We need 3 points. There will be two halves. One of them might be different to the other one. We might score goals. We might concede goals. It's going to be one of those games. I think a game for the ages. Yeah, I'm going to say it's a 3-pointer, but that one midweek against Kelly, that's a 4-pointer. I think.
I'm sure you said to me, Adam.
We'll cross that bridge when we come to it.
God,
I'm sure you said to me in the group chat that you're that lackadaisical about Saturday. You'd be all right if we kicked towards the Copland in the first half.
Oh, don't know about that. I was even feeling a bit weird when we swapped it at McDermott Park. I can't really remember where we shoot.
I didn't like that either. No, there should be a law brought in. You know, IFAB want to fucking ruin football. Stick your blue cards up your arse, right? Instead, bring a rule out that says the team that play at home get to kick the way they want. And that goes for us as well. When we go away from home, if we win the toss and say, I will turn around, the rest you go, no, you won't. Right, no. But when we're kicking towards the Copland in the first half, it is a fucking war crime.
Listen, can we just concentrate on getting referees to give us penalties first, and then we'll talk about which half we're shooting towards further down the line? Is that all right?
You're on mute, Adam.
Jesus.
So I am.
He's the one running this. Fuck's sake.
What a shit show.
Honest to fuck, man.
30 seconds away from the end.
Man.
30 seconds away from the end.
Right.
I'm
You're thinking about your takeaway, aren't you? Aye. I can see it in your eyes. You're thinking about phoning a Chinese. Aye.
Right, let's get this finished before the football starts. But Marshall, last question.
Aye, and the Chinese closes.
Last question on Chrissy's question here. Do you think Tom Lawrence should play next to Lundstrom? I think we've probably covered that. It'll be sort of horses for courses, but talks about Todd Cantwell in there as well. What's your take on how he's done? He's had a bit of an up and down 12, 13 months or so. Started off pretty well, tailed off start of this season along with quite a few others. But since I want to say since the start of December when he moved into the number 10 slot properly and stayed there, I think he's been very well, but it's particularly in the last 3 or 4 weeks since he came back. He not only the goals and assists, but I think it's the energy he brings and the sort of passion. He just seems to be fitter. He seems to be moving quicker. He seems to be more decisive. How has he done for you?
I really like him. I think if you compare him to the last player we talked about and Raskin, I think with Lawrence, I see what he can do more than Raskin. I think he brings it more than someone like Raskin. And the role he's playing now, where he's really that dual threat, we can sit beside Lundstrom deeper back, or he can fill in for Cantwell if he needs to come off towards the end of the game. I think again that he's going to be really, really important for us. I think he's done great so far. Yeah, absolutely delighted with Lawrence so far.
Definitely. Yeah, I think the thing for me, particularly at home, and Phil's done this, is one, he's got rid of the fucking double pivot. That's 3 managers in a row before Phil. Guys, they're going to give us 70% possession willingly. You don't need 2 defensive midfielders there. Get Lawrence and Cantwell playing, and they've got a good link up. You can see, but you get your attacking players on. It might be different, if you're going to Tynecastle or Parkhead or whatever. You might go, I want Dujon in there, for example, Ryan Jack.
Yep.
Get that. That makes perfect sense. But at home, when a team is giving you the ball and saying, go and break us down, get your creative players into the sides. Common sense.
Definitely. I think Lawrence has been pretty big for that, finding that space. playing a little bit deeper than Cantwell, obviously, but not anywhere near just sitting there with Lundstrom, like you said. I think that's been huge. I like the balance on that. Okay, I think that will do us for tonight. Cammy, thank you for joining us.
No, thank you, boys, and thank you to everyone who was watching and sending in questions and stuff as well. Love the conversation, and hopefully you're all feeling as positive as I am that we're on course for a very successful season.
Definitely. I've not been able to keep up with the questions, so there's probably some belters that I've missed, but it's been like my eyes have been going like Wheel of Fortune. So, yeah, thank you once again for bringing them all in, obviously. Marshall, pleasure to have you on.
I just want to say thank you for inviting me on to this massive pod.
No worries. Huge pod, big 3 pods. David, thank you very much.
Yeah, I fucking hate doing these. So that means that people, anyone who's asked, because I've had messages on my phone during the show, why are you sitting in the dark and fucking protest at having to do this? So that's it done. I don't need to do it again for 6 months. I hope you fucking enjoyed it. We're going back to audio pods, which is what 4 old, ugly, bald men should be doing. So yeah, stick your fucking video pod up your arse, Adam. But you can't guilt me into saying I didn't do it. Thanks for listening and watching, folks.
That's the only reason he did it. So did anybody want to do this? And he's the first one to put his hand up just so he can have a moan about it. But anyway, thank you all for watching. Thank you all for the comments across however many platforms we're on. It's very much appreciated. Huge game on Saturday, as we all know. Cammy will be
3
back,
points is a must.
Cammy will be back to preview that on Thursday night, I think. So stay tuned to that on YouTube and Patreon and everywhere else you get your pods. But yeah, once again, thank you all and we'll speak to you soon.